So you've gone ahead and looked at a few graffiti alphabets and maybe tried to copy one of your own. Um, at this point, you're starting to figure out what you want your writer name to be. And you've started to kind of write that in your graffiti alphabet. I came up with the name He Who Quotes, which is going to be initialized to HWQ. Because I don't really make graffiti, but if I did, I think my weapon of choice would be putting quote marks around signs. So what I did was I started taking my graffiti alphabet and extracting letters in order to write my writer name. And what I noticed was that every letter in my graffiti alphabet needs to have like an entry point and an exit point so that they can flow together smoothly. Remember that if you're a graffiti writer, you're sometimes using tools like spray paint or crink markers that need to be deployed very quickly and fluidly. So because of that, you're not going to write the way you normally would with separate letters like this. You want to make your style distinctive, but you also need it to flow together. So what I did was I sort of practiced each letter, and then I wanted to see how I could make it flow into the next one. So for each combination, I needed to kind of find the entry point and exit point of each letter. So for example, the word quotes, if I want my Q to look like this, I can either start here or here. So I actually need to be able to make my letters forwards and backwards. And sometimes this is very counterintuitive because the way that we write normally, there's kind of like a built-in muscle memory for how each letter is formed. And when you're making graffiti, you need to kind of learn two ways to write, kind of the forwards and the backwards, if you want to be able to make it really fluid and fast. So I'm going to kind of dispense with the whole writing out he who quotes in long text, and I want to sort of experiment with just the initials HWQ, and I want to convert it to my graffiti alphabet, which I need to modify this because this is super messy, and that's going to be this H is going to take me a really long time to make. So I'm going to go ahead and practice it a few more times just in a margin somewhere. I kind of like that. It's got symmetry to it. It's got an entry point and an exit point. And if I want to, I can probably do it backwards if I need to start over in this corner. So since I'm going left to right, I'm going to write this way. And then this has to lead me right into the W. Normally my W, as you can see, starts up here. But there's no reason why it can't start down here like that. And then this should lead me into the Q. Now the Q is tricky because both the entry and the exit points are kind of in the lower right-hand corner here. So I'm going to have to figure out a new way to make my Q, something that is kind of stylistically aligned with the remainder of my text. So I might do something like, if I'm coming out of the W like that, no, that doesn't look right because it kind of looks like the @ sign, right? So what I want to do instead is maybe, I'm going to start from up here now so that my style is consistent. That looks too much like an O, so I want to try something else. Maybe I'll kind of go all the way across and do something like that. So the whole thing would be I think I need to kind of end it like that. I think that's what makes the Q the Q. So I need to kind of start again. I need to figure this out. So let's see. No, that's not going to work. It's just a lot of experimentation until I come up with something that I like. I can always go back and kind of think about how I would normally make a Q. So for me, I'm noticing that I'm doing this and then coming down like that. So that starts up here, so I can start from my W. And I think I'm kind of okay with that. It looks a little bit like an O, but I've definitely got that Q thing going on. So from the top, it's like rehearsing a piece of music. Very nice. That's a good tag right there. I made it swiftly. What I would do now is I would go ahead and write it 10 times just to see if I can make it identically and smoothly each time. It's nice. It's kind of getting a rhythm to it. And it doesn't have to be that legible. A lot of the things you see about tags is that they have these kind of cool directional features to them so that they can gain a sense of artistic rhythm and form. I kind of like that this is just sort of like turning up right into that part of the cue. It almost gives it this kind of three-dimensionality to it. And once I've gotten to this stage, another thing that I can start to look for is ways to kind of trim off some of the excess here. So for example, if I find that there's a line that has a consistent thread through this, for example, this one going into there, right? If I distill this down, suddenly I can start with this and I've got a kind of a unified thing. So there's modifications that you can make that kind of save you time. So the H is doubled into the first line of the W here, and then so basically I'm now drawing a horizontal line. I'm drawing a W through the middle. I'm doing a line on the left, and I'm doing a sort of a Q on the right. What if I distill that even further? I want to always leave this here for reference. Maybe I can start it with this. So that's going to be the curl of my Q. I'm going to make that W through it. So I'm like writing the word EWO through this. So, and if EWO gets condensed, I haven't gone too far from the original. And let's see if I can speed that up even more by making it into one line. So what I've done is I've started down at the right side of the Q. I've come up, I've curled. I'm kind of abbreviating that HW, and it's just kind of turned into a mountain range that goes through. So it's getting a little messy now, and I've kind of gotten a little bit away from maybe where I want to be, so I can always backtrack and kind of start over from where I was. And maybe find some better way from the W into the Q, which has kind of been the weakest link in this whole process to begin with. We can also look at that in other places. So for example, if we take a look at this image, we can see that a tagger, whose name is probably something like Fancy Trampoline Panda, has tagged the police vehicle. Let's take a look at this tag. So we're looking at the tag of the writer whose name is Fancy Trampoline Panda. And we can look at this and figure out like how can we economize this text. So if we just kind of like draw everything together, you can see where the lines are. So like if we do that and then we put this here like that, that's all we have left to do. So we can even make it simpler. And now we have a very easy to draw tag which also kind of looks like a panda bouncing on a trampoline. So that's very fortuitous for us. So I hope that you will practice your graffiti alphabet and develop your tag this week. That's going to be your assignment, because later on we're going to be developing these tags into something that is a little bit more complex.